What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we're jumping in with a pretty big Destiny 2 news video, and of course this comes alongside This Week at Bungie. This is a fairly significant one, so initially Bungie do touch on how they're going to be evolving seasons as we move into year 4 of Destiny 2, some adjustments to rewards, as well as content accessibility. So for example in year 4, the current plan is to make seasonal content last for the full duration of a given year. So we will talk about that, but also they speak about how they're going to be adjusting bounties as we move into future seasons as well. So a few changes to how they work, quality of life adjustments and things like that, but they also speak about Guardian Games on the subject of current content, an explanation of how scoring works, but they also discuss possible cheating, give a few clarifications there, and otherwise we do have a couple of additional things to round up in the video. So guys, if you enjoy this one, as always a rating down below helps me out, but now let's get into it. Let's speak about evolving seasons first. So Evan Nikolic from Bungie, I believe I'm saying that name correctly, I apologize if not, but they jump in to talk about some of the seasonal content, and of course last week they spoke about Trolls of Osiris in particular. But this week they say, in year 4, we are going to build a better interconnected narrative, and more importantly, let players be a part of that narrative no matter where they enter the current year. This means that if you start playing in March 2021, you could go back and experience the Season 12 and 13 narrative content. And we want our stories to feel more cohesive, flow with meaningful momentum season over season, and lead to an exciting climax each year. They go on to say we haven't preserved enough history for a player who comes in mid-year to have any concept of what came in that year's prior seasons, and as a result, players can feel left behind later in the year and unable to experience the stories or to acquire prior seasons' weapons and gear. The Forsaken Season Pass allowed its content to build up over the course of the year, and that's where we're headed in year 4, so they will be broadly moving back to something a little more similar to the annual pass, at least in terms of content accessibility. And that means that activities will last the entire year, so beginning in Season 12, the core parts of the activity experience will live on after the season has ended. For late players joining in future seasons, we want to give you the opportunity to jump straight into the heart of the older activity experiences without all of the previous season-specific requirements. And we want to remove any competing and distracting elements with the new active season, which has its own ritual progression, but the actual activity experience stays. And so they give us an example using Season of Dawn to illustrate. They say with the new approach, when Season of Dawn concluded, we would have left behind the Saving Saint 14 quest, the exotic quests to acquire Devil's Ruin and Bastion, and the Sundial activity. We would sunset the Obelisk's experience to reduce clutter in the quest log, and to keep bounty quantity from inflating across the game, and deprecate the Fractaline currency so it could be safely removed from the player's inventory. The obelisks were time intensive, and we do not want to overload a player's choices in engaging in the current season's ritual versus the past season's ritual. And this is our current plan for year 4, but like everything else, these plans and exactly how content persists will change and evolve as we work. They also say that D2 will still have moments woven into the overall universe narrative where we remove old content and allow for new content and stories to grow in its place. As we've said in the past, we can't continue to grow the Destiny universe infinitely. There are lots of reasons for this, technical, resourcing, as well as from an overarching universe design standpoint, and finding the balance of creating and maintaining content in our ongoing narrative is a necessary part of continuing to build on D2. And so that content is going to be much more persistent in year 4. Let us know what you think about that, but they also say that rewards will remain, so with the seasonal activities persisting, a player will need a good reason to go and play them. And the reason is in the rewards, and we're planning on carrying a season's rewards forward throughout the year. And of course that will be a year 4 change, but they say in the short term, to acknowledge this step forward we're taking, we are adding some selected weapons from seasons 8, 9, and 10 to an Engram that will drop during season 11. So some of the current seasonal weapons that are unobtainable are going to be added to an Engram next season. But long term, they do want to make sure that the rewards they release each season are available to players throughout the year. But the focus is to broaden and provide multiple plays for you to earn past season's rewards. So in future, in addition to rewards coming from the seasonal activity, they say they're thinking of having seasonal rewards be available to earn in the core modes of play as well, so Strikes, Crucible, and Gambit. And if you're getting tired of playing Sundial, you'll have the opportunity to jump into the Crucible or Strikes to pick up a couple of the Season of Dawn weapons that they've picked. So of course using that example of Season of Dawn again. And the plan is as the seasons roll on to add more rewards back to the core activities to reacquire. And so, to summarize, they say, we're moving towards seasons that can be experienced all year. the Destiny experience should grow each year after an expansion, have a meaningful evolving world, and a bunch of reasons to play, and then each year we should take a step forward into a new expansion. And so they are clarifying, very much larger annual expansions are still on the table. But on the subject of future content changes, they say there will be much more to talk about regarding Year 4 in the coming months. So give us your thoughts on that, guys. Of course, there are plenty of finer content details that we'll really want to learn about before we get to Year 4, but having content kind of persist in the game for around a year is definitely more meaningful than taking it away every 3 months, but of course there needs to be that appropriate level of depth to that content in the first place. So once again, let us know your thoughts in the comment section. Up next though, on the subject of XP and season rank, they say while the specifics are still in development, as early as Season 12, we want to replace weekly bounties with a mechanism that provides players with a set of non-expiring and account-scoped objectives each week that grant lots of seasonal rank progress. And so potentially, instead of weekly bounties, more of a kind of milestone-style system that encourages you to play a whole bunch of different content, and then actually awards season rank progress more specifically. But they do say they want optional XP optimization and not critical path. So starting in Season 12, we plan to steer away from the model of having bounties generally be considered critical path. And so bounties should focus on being an optional way to optimize for more or faster core progressions like XP or powerful gear by way of challenges. And then for event bounties, they point out that again, for seasonal events, bounties are a pretty integral part of the design at the moment. And generally speaking, they're looking at plans to adjust the role that bounties will play in future events. On top of this, they say potentially a bit further down the road, maybe in Season 13, we could look at getting an update where we have a mechanism allowing bounties to be accessed directly from the destination's map, so instead of running from one vendor to another, you could pick up bounties pretty much at any time. On top of this, they say they also don't like it when you have a bounty you've nearly completed in the middle of the previous day's play session, and it expires right in the middle of a current day's play session. And so they are looking to relax some of the expiration times in Season 11 to give more time to close out the previous day's 19 out of 20 grenade kills, as an example. So that's definitely positive quality of life. But also, in general, they say they want to dial back the time to complete bounty objectives to be more consistent, and unexpectedly time-consuming objectives, such as getting grenade kills, are things that they want to be a little bit less restrictive about in upcoming seasons. And so lots of interesting conversation there, and lots of potentially positive sounding changes. Once again, I know you guys are going to have a lot of questions about the finer details of how the content will really be adjusted. Obviously, it's pretty early days in terms of revealing any real content details, but in terms of generally what Bungie are looking to do, it gives us an idea of just some of those changes. So once again, give us your thoughts below. Now though, on the subject of Guardian games, they say after day 1, they saw a lot of players asking about score weighting since the results seemed to play out like the population of classes predicted. But since Titans have been relentlessly destroying the other classes, they point out that they've seen many players asking if there may be some other issues going on. And so they explain really what's happened so far. On day 1 of the event, Hunters won, not simply because there are more of them, but because a greater percentage of them showed up and contributed. They say on day 2, Titans arrived and began outperforming the Hunters, and Warlocks are no doubt considering all the angles and planning for the right moment to strike. And so the graph they show right here shows how many of each class actually participated relative to how many characters each class had active during the prior 30 days of the event beginning, and you can see a tight correlation between more bodies in the game and the outcome of the competition. They go on to say though that Titans haven't just been overwhelming the competition with a flood of muscle mass, they've also been out depositing the other classes on an individual basis. So on average, Bungie say that each Titan has contributed more medals to their cause than each Hunter or Warlock. This was even true on day 1, but on that day, there were enough Hunters participating that they made up in bodies what they lacked in output. And so partially Bungie are very much saying, Hunters and Warlocks, there is still the opportunity to take the win right here. And so give us your thoughts about what they've said there. I know there will definitely be some opinions about it, but further on the subject of Guardian games, again, players pointed out videos that did show characters, but especially Titans, seemingly smashing a bunch of medals in at once. Again, kinda looked like cheating right here, but DMG did say, apologies for the delay on commentary here. If you see a player spamming medal turn-ins in the tower, this is purely a visual bug, and this is providing no extra benefit to any class in Guardian games. And he adds as well that the team has tested and verified this, but they wanted to make sure before making a statement. And again, players had highlighted videos of Guardians in the tower just spamming medals into the podium, but Bungie say that this is a purely visual bug and doesn't mean that that player is cheating. But a lot of folks in the community have also discussed players deleting and recreating characters during Guardian games. So DMG again said that deleting and creating a character isn't moving the needle either, and that the impact of Guardian Games' intro quest farming, since all the classes are doing it in similar ratios, is negligible and has had no impact on the final daily rankings. So yes, Titans are really actually crushing it. So that's a pretty interesting statement. And essentially yes, on a very small level, apparently, these stats are actually being recorded, but according to DMG, it's more the case that those numbers are incredibly negligible, and when doing the maths, it doesn't indicate that they're actually affecting the daily score. But finally he says to sum up, spamming medal turn-ins using a latency exploit doesn't actually work, and recreating characters to bank extra medals isn't giving any class an unfair advantage. And so let us know your thoughts about all of that, but players have also speculated about the recent hotfix and whether Bungie had touched Guardian Games in that update. So Cosmo said, we didn't make any changes to Guardian Games in the hotfix, and of course they have since shared a bit more information about it in This Week at Bungie. So those are Bungie's words on the subject, and for me I personally didn't really expect that they were really fudging the numbers in some way. And I guess that sounds good since I am a Titan main, but yeah, more than anything, I'll be curious to get a sense of what you guys think. It's certainly interesting to see how much conversation it sparked. Of course though, yesterday, Bungie did drop that new update for the game, and the actual patch notes for hotfix 2.8.1.1 finally became available, so there were only 3 changes. Initially, for combat, they fixed an issue that allowed Guardians to quickly regain ability energy when picking up Warmind cells. I believe there were a few exploits that players were using, especially some pretty funky builds that you could set up with those Warmind cells, but that has been adjusted. Also though, for the Season Pass, level 32 and 92 upgrades now unlock for all 3 characters. And players who were previously locked out of these season bonuses can now access them. Good to finally have a fix for that one. And then of course there was the nerf to Hardlight, and Hardlight's damage fall-off now floors at 0.7 times, where auto rifles use a 0.5 times standard. And then they've split ricochet rounds bonus damage between PvE and PvP, so the PvE damage wasn't actually changed, and that's at 2 times, but then PvP damage was reduced to 1.35 times. And they also removed a recoil adjustment that made the weapon more stable than intended, and have added that the perk description will be updated in all different languages on the weapon in a future patch. A very quick shout right here, but we actually missed some new pinnacles from last week's update. We didn't touch on these in any of our patch notes or reset videos, but it's just worth mentioning that Bungie did add 4 new weekly pinnacle sources, so Crucible Strikes, Gambit Challenges, and the weekly Clan Engram have been upgraded from Powerful to Pinnacle. And so just in case you hadn't really noticed that, there could be some specific new challenges to focus on, especially if you're not running raids, dungeons, and things like that on a regular basis. So just wanted to highlight those, and of course, they'll now be on the list for the weekly reset video. And so there we go guys, that is everything we have to talk about today. Something random that only really occurred to me a few hours ago though, is that Age of Triumph of course came out right at the end of March 3 years ago, so that was the final update for Destiny 1, where we had all the raids updated with ornamented gear, the crazy glows, the adept exotic weapons, and more. And for veteran players, it's a very fondly remembered time in Destiny history. It's just crazy to think that 3 entire years have passed since that update actually dropped. And of course, plenty has happened in D2 since then. I'm gonna say it again, man. Bungie, you gotta give us some of those glowing armor pieces, dude. Let's get it done! But guys, if you have enjoyed the video, a rating below really helps me out. If you're new around here, also hit subscribe to see a lot more Destiny 2 content. And give us your thoughts as always on the commentary from Bungie, in the twab and all that good stuff. But otherwise, thanks as always for tuning in, and I hope you have an awesome day.